Kettle read all this and could not help exclaiming, "How vast this world truly is." He raised a hand to his chin, pondering, and there are still more places, similar to the frozen tundra. A moment later, he stood up from the table and said, "That must be all the information available here." He looked toward the librarian and said politely, "This information has been really useful. Thank you." She nearly jumped out of her skin, startled, and stammered, "Why yes, of course." Kettle slowly made his way back to the mercenary guild. He stepped inside and approached the guild receptionist. Speaking up, "Rosa, what tasks are available today?" She looked up, surprised. "Lord Kettle, you have returned already." Kettle's eyes sparkled as Rosa smiled and handed him the task sheet. "Here are today's job requests." The old man continued to watch Kettle's every move and gesture, his curiosity growing. The way he observed him, it was clear this was no ordinary person. Finally, the old man turned away, muttering to himself, "Perhaps I need to meet him directly." It dawned on him, he was Cain, the sword saint, now observing Kettle on the second day. On a quiet evening, with the moon bright and a gentle breeze blowing, the sound of footsteps echoed sharply along the empty street. Kettle smiled, his face alight with excitement, thinking to himself, "Today, I will handle another dozen requests." He glanced at the small pouch of coins hanging at his side, feeling a surge of delight. Even these small earnings, when accumulated, added up to quite a bit. Outside, the streets were deserted. Only Kettle walked silently. At this pace, the day he would be recognized as a true mercenary could not be far off. He whistled cheerfully as he strolled along, filling the empty street with the sound. In a narrow alley nearby, a man had been hiding, watching him. Suddenly, seeing Kettle approach, the man lunged out, startling him. Cain's face was grim and terrifying, partially hidden under a long cloak and a large hood. The two stood facing each other, the air taut with tension. Kettle crossed his arms over his chest and asked boldly, "You have been following me all day, have not you?" Cain flinched, taken aback. "Huh." Kettle pressed on, his voice firm, "What do you want?" Caught off guard by the directness of the question, Cain's mind raced. How did he notice me? His face went pale, mouth agape in disbelief. He had been completely concealed no matter how sharp his senses. He should have been undetectable. Seeing Cain remain silent, Kettle's hand instinctively moved to protect the pouch of coins at his side. Could he be a thief? He crouched slightly, ready to grapple at a moment's notice. Cain, in turn, froze, dumbfounded. After a long pause, with no response, Kettle furrowed his brows and spoke again, his tone sharp, not answering, I guess I was right. Security here seems decent, but there are still thieves around." Sweat streamed down Cain's face as he stammered, "And no. Would he even believe me if I said I am a sword saint?" Seeing Cain's stiff, panicked posture, Kettle was struck with sudden realization. Still robbing at his age, the economy must be worse than I thought. He paused, hand resting on his chin in thought. Then his eyes lit up, a spark of an idea igniting. Taking down this man and turning him in could make for a solid accomplishment. Cain froze entirely, startled. "What?" Kettle's subtle, knowing smile left Cain momentarily speechless. He reconsidered, "Actually, this might be a good opportunity. He thinks I am a thief." He clenched his fists and thrust them forward. So, a direct confrontation might be the best way to gauge his strength and identity, he thought. Suddenly, Kettle lifted his foot and stepped back. Cain instinctively looked up, stunned. I have not even made a move yet, and he is already acting. Kettle's body swayed lightly, seemingly untethered, and in an instant, a gust of wind sliced through the air. Cain jumped back, startled. Fear flashed across his face. Has he disappeared? With a sudden thud, Kettle reappeared right in front of him, glaring fiercely. His eyes glowed, and his body now seemed 2, maybe 3 times larger than before. What the? He reached a massive hand forward, as if to grab Cain. Cain stomped his foot, a surge of blue aura radiating from him. If I freeze here. He swung his arm, dodging to the side just in time. He would have grabbed my neck otherwise. Finally, Cain reacted, and Kettle let out a long, amused laugh. Baring his teeth in a wide grin, Kettle stared at Cain and said, "Not bad." But Cain was utterly bewildered, his eyes wide and rolling, unable to comprehend what had just happened. Impossible. He almost caught me. He collapsed to the ground, still trembling with fear. If my reflexes had been even slightly slower, I would be finished. But I can't sense any aura from him at all. Kettle crossed his arms over his chest, standing in place, laughing heartily. Interesting. Kane stared directly into his eyes, racing through his thoughts in a daze. He moves that fast, and yet his body seems purely human. Kane pressed his lips together, swallowed hard. The initial probing was over. Now it was the real thing. He crouched and leapt, gritting his teeth, transforming his demeanor entirely. I will give it my all. Kettle remained silent, his expression darkening as he stood perfectly still. Suddenly, he vanished again, leaving only a sharp gust of wind in his wake. In a flash, he reappeared behind Kane and grabbed one of his arms. Kane's jaw clenched as he turned to look behind him, disbelief etched on his face. Already defeated, I expanded my senses, and still, I could not react in time. Kettle twisted Kane's arm behind his back like he was escorting a captured criminal. Panic overtook Kane. His face went pale and depressed, as though his arm were pinned to solid rock, dragging his entire body along. He struggled violently, screaming in pain. What kind of monstrous strength is this? He gritted his teeth, enduring the hold. This was not even a pure test of strength. Unable to accept being subdued like this, Kane tensed his entire body, radiating power. Fine, I will go all out and unleash my full strength. Watching Kane exert his power like that, Kettle's eyes widened in surprise. The grip of his hand on Kane's wrist seemed to loosen little by little. Eventually, almost unconsciously, Kettle could no longer hold on. A sudden, violent flash of light erupted, blindingly bright. Kane broke free, stumbling backward and sliding across the ground. Kettle, still somewhat puzzled, held his hand out in front of him, noticing a faint trace of Kane's blue aura lingering in his palm. Kane furrowed his brows, breathing heavily, wary eyes never leaving Kettle. Kettle bared his teeth in a cheerful grin and said playfully, "The thieves these days really seem to have all kinds of tricks." Huh. Kane was left speechless, blinking in disbelief. Why does he keep calling me a thief? His eyes blazed with the recognition of a terrifying power, the manifestation of mana at a level only elites could achieve. Kane had fully wrapped his body in it, so why would someone like this need to steal? He glanced again at Kettle's radiant, admiring expression, but the younger man truly seemed to believe he was a mere thief. Finally, Kane lowered his head slightly, exhaling in resignation. He could feel the immense energy coursing through his body. He had unleashed his mana instinctively, mana that could easily tear through solid steel. A normal human body would have been crushed by a single touch, yet Kettle had endured it without harm. What kind of body is this? Kane still could not comprehend it. To withstand raw, unshielded mana with bare hands. Impossible. Seeing Kane frozen in place, Kettle spoke up suddenly, "I do not know what trick you are using, but I think it is time to end this." Sensing danger, Kane's hand reached for the sword at his side, ready for whatever came next. His eyes widened, confused and fearful, not knowing what Kettle intended. Kettle stepped closer with a friendly smile, pressing his finger against the sword and nudging it back into its sheath. Kane looked up, trembling all over. Just that small gesture left him panicked, eyes bulging like a frog, mouth agape as he let out a terrified yell. He clenched his teeth, struggling to pull out the sword, but it was impossible. Kettle had already dominated him with just a single finger. Suddenly, something made Kane flinch. One hand held his sword, while the other reached forward, as if to grab him. Tears welled in the corners of Kane's eyes, old, yet still sensitive. It is over. Kettle's arm extended, inching ever closer. The playful smile vanished, replaced by a long, sharp exhale. Kane fainted in sheer terror, and Kettle effortlessly hoisted him onto his shoulder as if lifting nothing at all. So this was what stealing looked like in the world of fantasy. The captain of the Barkan guard suddenly froze, mouth agape, utterly confused. "A man D. What is happening here?" Kettle extended his arm forward. Old Kane was still unconscious, not yet having woken up. With a face of calm sincerity, showing no expression at all, Kettle stepped forward to turn him into the captain. The captain caught sight of him and immediately recognized who it was, yet he was bewildered. unable to comprehend the situation. In his mind, he questioned himself, what on earth is going on? Why is Sword Saint Cain here? Don't tell me that man D attacked Cain. So what am I supposed to do now? Seeing the captain's confusion, Kettle spoke plainly, I caught the thief. Those words hit the captain like a thunderclap. His jaw dropped, nearly hitting the ground. A thief. Kettle's face radiated excitement, eager to see what could be gained from this action. If I hand him over to the guards, will it count toward my mercenary achievements? The captain, utterly at a loss, did not understand a single word, completely frozen in a state of despair and temporary stupidity. Standing there for a moment, he still could not process the situation. What in the world is going on? He carefully analyzed from head to toe. Here was a person who had reached the pinnacle of extraordinary skills, Sword Saint Cain. And now, the very man this esteemed figure was captured in Kettle's hands, held in a humiliating posture by a mere man D. The captain slowly parted his lips to speak, that is not a thief. Kettle's eyes widened in surprise, yet he immediately accused bluntly, you know him, so he is an accomplice. The captain straightened his stance, adjusting his posture to appear solemn. Then he bowed deeply in formal respect. The sole sword saint in the kingdom of Gentra, I humbly express my utmost respect to Sword Saint Cain. It seemed genuine. Kettle glanced at the unconscious man in his hands, perplexed. Huh. Cain's face darkened, sweat pouring down, and he remained silent. Still slightly skeptical, Kettle shook him lightly in his grasp, questioning internally, Sword Saint, that prestigious title. And yet he was called a thief. His sharp, unwavering gaze fixed firmly on the captain as he insisted, impossible. This old man is a thief, he attacked me to steal my coins. The captain sighed, weary, and had to explain once again, number. He truly is a sword saint. I cannot be mistaken about that face. Perhaps he is using some kind of illusion magic, but he is indeed Sword Saint Cain. The captain slowly closed his eyes and tried to make Kettle understand. If he were a mage strong enough to do such a thing, he would already be respected as a sword saint. Kettle still refused to give in, wondering if perhaps sword saint was just a fancy title for a thief. He furrowed his brow. What nonsense are you talking about? Kettle immediately froze in place. He asked again, so he is really a sword saint? The captain nodded immediately. Yes. Kettle froze once more. Guilt and confusion swirled across the captain's face like a spinning whirlwind. How am I supposed to report this to the Lord? Inside, a loud bang echoed against a table, followed by an urgent, angry voice. What? Luke Barkhan shouted, glaring at the soldier, Lord Cain is missing. Kettle bowed his head, accepting the blame sincerely. I apologize. I should have let him explain first. Cain, standing beside him, suddenly spoke up. No, I also share the fault for remaining silent. The two sat across from each other, the atmosphere thick with tension, awkward and uneasy, neither daring to meet the other's gaze. How many pairs of pants will this require to get through? Luke Barkhan rushed in, flustered and panicked. What the hell is going on? Seeing Cain sitting there in silence, he gasped, thinking, I expected Lord Cain to seek out that man D for a one-on-one duel, but I never imagined he would lose. Lord Cain has been defeated by the man D. I do not know the full details, but that is the truth. Then, looking at Kettle sitting across the room, he began to piece it all together. So that man D is stronger than a sword saint. The Lord froze in the corner just outside the door, his mind a whirlwind of thoughts. Of course, even among the supernaturals, there are different levels. Lord Cain only recently became a sword saint, so perhaps he was at a lower tier. Images of Kettle's terrifyingly violent posture kept flashing through his mind. A sword saint is someone who has reached the pinnacle of their title, a sword master, but this man D had defeated such a figure. That made him utterly uncontrollable. After a moment, he pressed his lips together and exhaled, thinking, my head hurts just trying to comprehend this. Luke Barkhan slowly stepped forward, his tone calm and measured. It seems there has been some misunderstanding here. I will take my leave for now. The two of you should speak and clarify things properly. He stopped mid-step, hesitating, mumbling, then. A silence fell over the room, thick and awkward, with no sound breaking it. Kettle sat across, staring at him unblinking. Cain grew more anxious, not daring to move. The Lord raised his teacup, his whole body trembling, unable to swallow. The humiliation was unbearable. Yet he could not deny it. This was a total defeat. His pride had been utterly shattered, ripped to pieces like a tattered rag. Taking a deep breath to regain composure, he slammed the cup down and said, "Allow me to introduce myself properly." He placed his hand on his chest. "I am Sword Saint Cain." Kettle crossed his arms and interjected immediately, "Sword Saint, is that your surname?" When one reaches the rank of Sword Saint, Cain replied, a human surname becomes meaningless. Hearing this, Kettle nodded slowly, as if enlightened. "I understand now. So the technique you used earlier, that was the skill of a Sword Saint." Mentioning it made Cain's eyes widen in disbelief, leaving him momentarily speechless. He spread his hand, summoning a faint glow of blue energy. "You mean this?" Seeing that, Kettle immediately sprang to his feet, exclaiming aloud, his voice full of wonder, as if witnessing a rare spectacle. Then he began to think back carefully on what had happened moments ago. "At first, I thought it was just a trick some thief was using, so I did not pay it much attention. But now, knowing it is a Sword Saint's skill, I am genuinely intrigued." Cain clenched his hand, drawing the energy back into himself. "This is the manifestation of arcane, also called aura." Kettle's eyes widened in astonishment. "Aura, so that is what it is." His eyes sparkled with hope. "Can I learn it somehow?" Cain did not hide anything and explained directly. "Well, essentially, you have to manifest it by controlling arcane." Kettle stared in awe at the energy controlled in Cain's palm, his gaze tinged with envy. "So arcane is similar to mana, then?" Cain's face remained steady as he explained thoroughly. "Arcane refers to the essence of mystic power itself. When you use it as aura, you are a swordsman. When you use it as mana, you are a mage." As if suddenly enlightened, Kettle laughed softly, nodding. "So both swordsmen and mages draw from the same power called arcane. Would you be willing to teach me this skill?" Cain froze, eyes wide, mouth agape, unable to believe what he was hearing. Kettle straightened up sincerely. "It is shameful, I am still learning and lacking knowledge. I am asking you, please, teach me." Cain, shaken but compelled by Kettle's earnestness, stammered in agreement. "All right, but do you really need my guidance? Aren't you stronger than me?" 100 questions raced through Kettle's mind. He sat down, crossed his arms, and said plainly, "I know nothing about arcane or swordsmanship. Honestly, I have just been swinging blindly." Cain's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "Really?" He closed his eyes, considering carefully. "Yes, I am a Sword Saint. I may have lost, but I have not even drawn my sword yet." "Very well. I will teach this man a few techniques of the sword and show him their grandeur." Then, envisioning countless ideal scenarios, Cain demonstrated strikes with his sword, each move reflecting mastery that made Kettle's eyes widen in admiration. Cain thought to himself, "And through this, I will reclaim the pride that was shattered." Cain parted his lips, finally agreeing, "All right." His expression turned utterly serious, radiating the solemnity of a master. "I am a Sword Saint, and I wield the sword. Without a sword, I am merely half a man." Kettle's face tensed just as much, replying with a seemingly lethal quip, "Ah, that explains it. No wonder you were so weak because you were not using a sword." Cain stiffened, momentarily speechless, his pride silently wounded. "Tch." Kettle's eyes darted around, his tone awkward but persistent. "I mean, being called a Sword Saint with that level of power. I thought something was off." Cain ground his teeth in irritation. "This brat." Emboldened, Kettle continued bluntly, "If you would used your sword, you might have won." Cain could feel sweat prickling on his forehead, a mix of disbelief and apprehension. Could I really win just by using a sword? Meanwhile, Kettle's eyes gleamed with delight, almost like a festival of anticipation in his mind. "I am really looking forward to it," he thought. "But this will mark the start of Cain's unstable days. His pride. I am going to take it back for myself, and I have a feeling I might even crush him utterly in the process." Kettle silently recalled his past life, thinking, "Before my reset, I had practiced swordsmanship, but this is true arcane swordsmanship, a strange art that manipulates mysterious aura." He muttered to himself, "So this is what arcane swordsmanship really is." At that moment, Cain raised his sword, standing seriously before him, and asked, The core of my swordsmanship lies in the fusion of illusion and reality. When you fought my disciple, what did you see? Kettle thought back, remembering the knight had been Kane's student. The sword technique had split into 3, yet all 3 were real attacks. He blinked in surprise and said, "Ah. So that is what you meant by fusion." Kettle shared his observation, so it is more about skill than raw strength, huh? Kane nodded slightly, exactly. He continued, swordsmanship is the art of merging blade and aura to wield arcane power. And one who masters this path becomes a sword saint. Then Kane infused his aura into the blade, demonstrating it to Kettle. Kettle's eyes lit up with excitement. "Ah, so that is aura," Kane confirmed with a nod. He muttered to himself, "I still can't believe this is happening." Kane continued, "I suppose the idea of fusing illusion and reality sounds abstract. I can't believe I am teaching swordsmanship to a barbarian." He then assumed a fighting stance. "So I will let you witness it firsthand." In an instant, Kane's gaze sharpened. Within a heartbeat, he swung his sword forward with tremendous force. The strike split into 5 distinct paths, advancing toward Kettle. Kettle's eyes widened in astonishment. His sword technique split into 5. Seconds later, Kane's strike left a deep dent in the wall. He quickly retracted his blade and explained, "Many techniques create illusions using aura. But to make those illusions tangible, only my swordsmanship can do it." Kettle calmly spoke for the first time, "The move you just used. I feel like I could do it too." Kane's eyes widened in shock. He scolded lightly, "What nonsense are you spouting?" Internally, Kane thought, "I have devoted my entire life to the sword, blending innate talent with relentless training. I struggled for years to reach this level. No one could replicate this by merely observing once." Seeing Kane still skeptical, Kettle said, "It will be faster if I just show you." He revealed the object in his hand. Kane's eyes went wide. He puzzled over it, an axe. At the same time, Kettle swiftly assumed a combat stance, ready to demonstrate. Kettle swung the axe over his shoulder, channeling all his strength into the motion. Then, with lightning speed, he brought it crashing forward. Watching this, Kane froze in astonishment. That strike, he thought, mouth agape. He is just using brute force to move fast. Nothing more. Across from him, Kettle paid no attention to Kane and unleashed 5 consecutive strikes forward, mimicking Kane's own previous technique. The impact of his blows against the wall created a massive explosion. Kane's jaw dropped even further in disbelief. Standing nearby, Kettle retrieved his axe and smiled brightly. "So, what do you think?" he asked cheerfully. Kane, still in a daze, thought, "It really looks like the fusion of illusion and reality when he strikes, even though it is purely brute force and overwhelming speed. I was almost fooled for a moment." Then he muttered, "He is just swinging around wildly, there is no technique at all." Kettle shrugged, "But the result is not much different. Swordsmanship exists for actual combat, after all." He added with a grin, "As long as the result is the same, is not that enough?" Kane was momentarily speechless. Internally, he lamented bitterly. "He is not wrong, but he is wounding my pride too much." Moments later, Kane quickly regained his composure, raising his sword. "Well then, how about this?" He struck again, this time producing multiple clones of himself. Kettle froze once more. His body splits. The sword's aura radiated outward, carving cracks into the ground around him. After the display, Kane exhaled heavily. This is the clone technique, achieved only by mastering aura to its extreme. He wiped his sweat and asked Kettle, "Do you think you can replicate it?" Kettle pivoted and stepped aside, moving toward another corner. Then he swung his axe again, striking in multiple directions, creating near illusory afterimages. Kane gawked, mouth wide open. Undeterred, Kettle continued to swing, gradually generating a massive whirlwind around himself. A full tornado began to take shape. After finishing, Kettle laughed and asked, "So, what do you think?" Kane collapsed to his knees, crying out loud. His face drained, filled with despair. "All my life's effort." He rolled his eyes and wept. "My swordsmanship." Muttering to himself, "This can't be." Moments later, Kane crumpled fully, clutching his face, utterly broken. Kettle crossed his arms over his chest and let out a soft sigh. His psyche is weaker than I thought," he thought to himself. He quickly stepped closer to Cain, speaking in a reassuring tone, "Your swordsmanship is extraordinary." He added, "I was just swinging the axe quickly. That is not real swordsmanship." Then he continued, "But the technique you just displayed was not merely an afterimage, it is genuine swordsmanship. I can't yet reach the level of true mystical mastery." Hearing this, Cain thought to himself, "Indeed. My swordsmanship still holds value. I alone can merge illusion and reality into something tangible." After a moment, he regained his composure and spoke aloud. "Yes, my techniques have no flaw." Frowning slightly at Kettle, he thought, "That maniac is just insane. What kind of madman can move so fast as to leave a blur, and not even use aura? That is not humanly possible." Kettle suddenly spoke, "Could you teach me the true meaning of your techniques?" Cain flinched, caught off guard. Regaining his calm, he replied, My apologies. I let my emotions take over." Kettle nodded respectfully. "I understand." Clearing his throat, Cain continued, "To wield a technique properly, you must first learn to control your aura. But to control aura, you must first comprehend arcane magic." He explained further, "Whether you are a mage, swordsman, or sorcerer, you cannot ascend to higher levels without awakening arcane magic except for those who have faith in the gods." Kettle asked, So divine power is separate?" Cain nodded. "The miracles of the faithful come directly from the deity they worship. It is unrelated to personal power." Kettle's eyes widened in awe. "Whoa." Cain continued, "Arcane magic is the mysterious power deep within each person. How one channels that power determines everything." Kettle thought to himself, so whether using aura, absorbing mana, or controlling spirits, the foundation of all mystical power begins with mastering arcane magic. Cain went on to explain that arcane magic has 5 stages. He spoke seriously. The most basic is sensing arcane. It is the realm of recognition, opening, and perceiving arcane energy. Kettle asked, "Not everyone can sense arcane, right?" Cain replied, "Without talent, one cannot sense it." He elaborated, "Those who can sense arcane are called third rank." Cain clarified, "The ability to manipulate arcane is divided into 5 ranks, and third rank is the first level." Kettle recalled Mylena's words echoing in his mind. Typically, the divisions are third rank, second rank, first rank, transcendent, and hero. At the same time, Cain added, "Yes, those are the 5 primary classifications." Kettle thought to himself, so that is how it works." Cain continued, "In truth, this is just a convenient classification. Even within the same rank, there are vast differences, and the boundaries are unclear. It is enough to simply acknowledge the concept exists." Kettle nodded. "I understand." Cain motioned with authority. "Then let us begin." He spoke solemnly, "The first step of arcane magic is to sense arcane itself." Cain spoke softly, "Feel everything around you." He explained, "To master arcane means awakening something you have never known. Extend your senses to the fullest." He continued, "Feel the breeze brushing past you, the warmth radiating from the earth. Notice every movement in the wind as it stirs. And within all of that, seek a presence that stands apart." Kettle sat intently, trying to follow Cain's guidance. A few moments later, he opened his eyes wide and muttered, "I do not feel anything at all." Cain froze, stammering, "Really, I thought with your strength, you would sense it immediately." He thought to himself, "It is not an absolute rule, but usually, the strong can perceive arcane more easily even without mana. Perhaps he is an exception, a wild man." Stroking his beard in puzzlement, Cain asked, "Or, is this some anomaly of the Bak Hoang?" Kettle rested his chin on his hand, pondering, "I am not sure. No one around me has ever felt what you call arcane. People in the wilderness are like that." Cain made a suggestion, "In truth, even for most, mastering arcane is not easy. Let me try channeling energy directly into you, to open a path toward it." Excited, Kettle asked, "You mean transmit aura?" Cain nodded, "Something like that." Kettle's eyes lit up with anticipation. "All right, I am ready." Cain agreed. "Very well." He stood and moved behind Kettle. Speaking gently, Cain instructed, "Relax your entire body. Focus inward, gathering every sensation within yourself." He lightly placed a hand on Kettle's back. "Now, feel the mana I am channeling into you." Cain's face paled as he thought, "This body." He wondered silently, is he really human? He muttered in disbelief, he is like a block of carved stone. How dense are those muscles compressed? Is he even human? Seeing Cain remain still, Kettle tilted his head in curiosity. Cain. Startled by the call, Cain snapped back, "Ah." My mind wandered for a moment. Regaining composure, he said, "Let us begin." Cain thought to himself, I will start the flow of aura. The key is awakening the path of arcane within him. Finding it is the goal. It should not be too difficult. But then Cain hesitated again. Huh. He frowned. What is this? A flicker of shock passed through him. I can't find the path of arcane in his body. No, to be precise. Cain's face turned pale as he looked at Kettle. I cannot touch it. He murmured to himself, no matter how much I extend my aura, I cannot reach it. I sense nothing at all. The more he concentrated, the more it felt like swimming in a bottomless abyss. He realized, it is like being crushed under the weight of the deep. Sweating, Cain admitted, this is not right. Clearing his throat softly, ahem. Kettle raised his head slightly, a hint of panic in his eyes. Huh. Kettle frowned, asking, Sir, what do you mean by, not good? Are you saying I do not have the talent? Cain hesitated, It is not that. It is just, simply channeling aura into you is not enough. To find the arcane. He continued, you must discover the path within yourself and awaken the power that has been sleeping inside. Kettle hesitated. I know, but. Cain cut him off quickly. I cannot find the path to arcane within you. Kettle's eyes went wide. You mean I can't master arcane? Cain added softly, Not exactly. I can't even confirm whether it exists at all. Kettle tilted his head, suspicious. What does that mean? Cain replied, your body is unusual. He explained, to reach the arcane, the aura must penetrate deep inside. But your body is too dense. My aura cannot reach far enough within you. Cain frowned, thinking, I have never seen anything like this. Pure physicality actually blocking aura. Kettle, beside him, felt a tinge of frustration. Even a sword saint is helpless. Huh. After a moment, he pouted, so. I will never be able to master arcane. Cain answered cautiously, it is hard to say. I can't confirm any direction. He continued, I do not even know if that path exists within you at all. Then Cain gently offered advice. You should seek a sword saint who understands aura better, or perhaps visit a mage's tower. Cain lowered his head apologetically, regardless, I am sorry. Kettle shook his head softly, It is all right. He rested his chin on his hand, thinking, there is still hope. That is enough for today. A moment later, Kettle stood up quickly, even so. He smiled brightly, thank you, sir. I have learned a lot from you today. I am grateful. Cain remained silent, offering no reply. He reflected internally, the wild men I have met before were untamed, they robbed, drank, and lived by violence. That is why society cast them aside. After a pause, Cain asked, but this one is different. Have you ever considered joining the kingdom? Kettle tilted his head, what do you mean? Cain replied, I mean swearing allegiance to the kingdom and accepting rank. He added, with your strength, you could rise very high. I would even be willing to sponsor you. Kettle chuckled, that is an interesting offer, but. He bowed his head and explained, I must decline. I do not want to be bound. Cain thought to himself, if I had him, perhaps we could even escape the Empire's control. He pressed further, even so. Rank alone cannot tempt you, that is still not enough. Kettle's expression darkened for a moment. HMPH. Then he smiled brightly, I choose to enjoy my own freedom. Cain looked surprised at his words. He muttered awkwardly, I see. Understood. Kettle raised his hand cheerfully, in any case, thank you, sir. I will not forget this favor. Cain remained silent, lost in thought. A few minutes later, he left the room, wandering the hallway. He scolded himself inwardly, I am truly a fool. Cain remained lost in thought, realizing that even for a moment, controlling him was impossible. He sat in silence, considering that the wild man acted only according to his own will. He might cooperate with others but only to a limited extent. Within him, only his own thoughts existed. Cain speculated, what is he thinking? Perhaps that is what makes him even more unpredictable than other wild men. He felt exhausted, reflecting on a being from the demon realm, a wild man from the white wastes. After a while, Cain let out a long sigh, "Ha." He muttered to himself, "Invade the demon realm. What is the Emperor scheming?" In Luke Barkan's study, the man furrowed his brow and asked seriously, "So, the Emperor truly wants to conquer the demon realm?" Cain responded, "He acts in the name of reconnaissance." Luke asked skeptically, "Are you serious?" Cain exhaled heavily, "Absolutely. Perhaps he sees himself as the incarnation of an ancient emperor." He added, "But for now, that is a matter of the future. We have not even fully consolidated human territory yet." Luke paled slightly, weariness creeping in, "It is only a matter of time." Cain reminded him, "Yes. This land still belongs to the Empire. We could be summoned at any moment. It is best to be prepared." Luke nodded in acknowledgement. "Understood. Thank you." Cain leaned back in his chair, letting out another long sigh. The world is already chaotic enough, and now the Emperor is half sane, half mad. What a headache. Luke seemed to come to a sudden realization. He asked in a low voice, "Could it be? The rumors are true." Cain quietly confirmed, "Yes. The demons have begun to mobilize." Luke's face went pale in shock. Cain continued, "The dungeon outbreaks are also unusual. Nothing is certain yet, but some say the tainted demon realm is leaking out." He thought silently, something is happening, and whatever it is, it will be a disaster for humanity. Suddenly Cain recalled something and said, Now that I think about it, perhaps the strangest thing is right among us." Luke nodded, "Indeed." Cain asked softly, "What do you think?" Luke hesitated, "I do not know." He tensed slightly, thinking, at least he is not an enemy. "But," Luke said uncertainly, "beyond that, I cannot say anything further." Kettle quickly left Luke's mansion and strolled cheerfully through the streets. Suddenly, he paused, looking around. The townspeople and children nearby shrank back, trembling at the sight of him. Even those walking ahead hastily ducked behind walls in fear. Kettle fell into thought. He propped his chin with a hand, pondering, "Are they afraid of me because of my clothes?" Muttering to himself, he continued, "Or maybe it is because I am not wearing what they consider proper. A leather vest might be fine, but it probably does not look very civilized. They must think I am crazy and want nothing to do with me." He completely misunderstood their reaction. Suddenly, his eyes gleamed with determination. "All right then," he said to himself. With renewed energy, he clasped his hands together, deciding to buy a few sets of proper clothing. At a luxurious European-style clothing shop, the door opened slightly. The shop owner peeked out, ready to greet him, but froze, "Welcome." His face turned pale. Kettle strode in confidently, "I want to buy some clothes." The owner, terrified, thought, "A wild man." He bowed, trembling, "I am sorry, but I am afraid we have nothing that would fit your stature." Kettle snorted lightly and asked, That is troublesome. So there is no way." The owner quickly replied, bowing low, "If you are willing to wait, we can have garments custom made for you." Kettle brightened, "Oh, I see. Then let us do it." The shopkeeper managed to lift his head and respond, "Of course, sir. We will contact you when they are ready." He thought to himself anxiously, if he does not like the clothes once they are made, will I even make it out alive? On the way to the guild, Kettle suddenly stopped. What is this?" On the ground at his feet lay a small, blue gem. He quickly picked it up, examining it with curiosity. A gemstone. The gem emitted a brilliant, azure glow in his hand. Kettle frowned slightly. Then he pocketed the stone. "All right, I will ask the guild about this." Later, at the guild, Kettle pulled the gem from his pocket and quietly asked, "Do you know what this is?" The receptionist, Rosa, looked at him, waiting for him to continue. Kettle placed the gem in Rosa's hand. "I found this on the way here. It does not look like a normal sphere," he said. He added, "I see." Rosa examined it carefully, but she hesitated. "It does not really look like a gemstone either." She turned it over, inspecting it closely. The surface is very smooth, like it has been polished and carved. The gem in her hand shimmered with a faint blue hue. Rosa's eyes glazed over slightly, as if in a daze. There were no engravings, no markings, not even a name. She murmured, "Why? Why does it feel valuable?" Seeing her distracted, Kettle quickly snapped his fingers loudly. Startled by the sound, Rosa blinked and regained her focus, still holding the gem with a hint of confusion. Kettle asked gently, "Are you okay?" Flustered, she replied, what do you mean?" Kettle smiled faintly. "You looked enchanted by the sphere just now." Rosa frowned, curious. "Me?" Kettle waved it off. "Yeah, never mind, forget it." After a moment, Rosa looked at the gem again and said, "Still, this sphere is hard to read. I feel some strange energy coming from it. Do you want me to have it examined?" Kettle grinned. "Thanks, but I want to investigate it myself. That is part of the fun." He then asked, "By the way, what is the task today?" Rosa hurriedly replied, Yes. Just a moment, I will get the request board." She brought over a list: sweeping the streets, cleaning the sewers, weeding, harvesting potatoes. Kettle skimmed the list with a cheerful expression. Hours later, as evening fell, Kettle had earned another small sum, neatly placed on the table. He stretched out on the bed with a sigh of satisfaction. Another day of glory. Then he picked up the gem again, studying it seriously. "What exactly is this thing?" he muttered to himself. Rosa almost went crazy over it. Does it have some kind of function? Suddenly, Kettle frowned. A voice came from the gem, "Come to me." Kettle jumped in disbelief. Did I just hear the sphere speak? Inside his mind, the voice repeated, "Come to me. Come." He frowned, puzzled. What the hell? Is it trying to guide me somewhere? A little exasperated, he muttered, "And now it is showing me a map in my head. Some kind of magical control." The gem in his hand continued to glow with an eerie blue-black light, whispering again, "Come to me." Kettle exhaled. He looked out the window at the evening sky and murmured, "Then let us go." The gem's voice persisted, "Come to me." Kettle gritted his teeth. "I said I am coming, shut up already." He hurriedly followed the path indicated by the gem. Suddenly, he looked up in surprise. Before Kettle stretched a dark cave, and he wondered aloud, "Is this the place?" A faint smirk tugged at his lips. Inside, a skull-headed monster watched him silently. The gem continued its call, "Come to me." Kettle whispered back, "I am coming." "So where is the one behind this voice?" A low, deep voice echoed from behind a magical waterfall, and at the same time, a sacrificial figure stepped forward. The figure sneered, "So this time it is a foolish man at least he is big enough. A decent offering." Sitting in the center of a magical array, he muttered to himself. The skull-headed monster hissed softly, "That makes 10. Kettle's mind raced. This has to be a dream. Even resurrection could not have prepared me for this. The image of an old man, grinning with malice and seemingly manipulating everything in his grasp, came to life. In an era marked by brutal wars, countless kingdoms had fallen, and behind those times of turmoil stood a dark mage who manipulated and tormented humanity's spirits. He controlled numerous kings, stoked conflicts, and seized power from entire nations. Yet eventually, his crimes exceeded all limits, and karma struck back. He was hunted down by heroes. Before his ultimate destruction, however, he transferred his soul into a vessel, transforming himself into a lich. A lich, a being that traps its soul within a living host, endures until that host is destroyed. Through this method, the dark mage who once dominated the world became a lich and began plotting his resurrection. Needing countless lives as sacrifices for this resurrection, he concealed himself near a peaceful land, whispering death and quietly sowing chaos. He offered these lives as offerings to create magical stones essential for his revival. Once more plotting to conquer the world with overwhelming power. His goal was gradually drawing closer to fruition. Yet the lich was puzzled. Why was a man here? A sacrificial offering. This remote location was chosen precisely because it allowed him to amass power in secrecy, far from prying eyes. At this moment, Kettle stood bewildered, coming into the lich's field of vision. The presence of a man here was highly unusual. The lich studied every movement of him intently. This creature from the north must have traveled a long distance. Judging by his size, he would make a perfect sacrifice. The lich's hand began gathering energy into a glowing blue sphere, the gem imbued with a special enchantment. It was designed to attract only those who had not yet awakened their mystical power, so anyone drawn by the gem was someone unversed in arcane arts. In that vision, Kettle smiled brightly, unaware of what he had stumbled into. To the Lich, this Mandi appeared utterly ordinary, without mystical potential, seemingly unaffected perhaps by sheer luck. The Lich chuckled arrogantly, confident, yet oblivious that his next victim was about to ascend the sacrificial altar. Come here, Mandi, he thought, become the offering for my glorious resurrection. Soon, Kettle reached the door to the Lich's chamber. Here we go. He stepped inside decisively, without hesitation. Immediately, Kettle's eyes widened in astonishment. A green light flashed from the Lich's eyes, and the skeletal hand gripped a staff tightly. The Lich stood imposingly, staring directly at him. At that moment, Kettle realized this was a Lich. A real, living Lich. A being of the highest echelon, a type of ultimate villain only encountered in fantasy tales. It was inconceivable, yet he was witnessing a Lich in the flesh. Suddenly, the Lich furrowed his brow, a flicker of unease crossing his skeletal features. What are you? He demanded, his voice low and menacing. Don't tell me you were not drawn by the gem. Hearing this, Kettle's eyes widened slightly, and he responded immediately, so this is how you trick everyone into coming here. The answer only deepened the Lich's suspicion. What the? He thought, I can't sense any mystical power from him. In other words, he is just an ordinary Mandi. The Lich's curiosity sharpened. Does he possess some kind of artifact to protect his mind, he wondered. A high-grade creation? No, strong enough to block even my perception. How could a mere Mandi have such a thing? He stepped closer, voice dripping with condescension. Perhaps he has stumbled upon a lucky artifact somewhere. Kettle, sensing the suspicion, shook his head and said calmly, I do not have anything like that. Without warning, the Lich raised his staff. Streams of green-white energy surged into it, crackling through the chamber. You think you can deceive me, he spat. The energies likely drew in the residual spirits from scattered skeletons in the dungeon. If Kettle had submitted quietly, he might have died without pain. Two skeletal figures rose from the ground, each gripping a sharp sword. My subordinates, summoned, the Lich proclaimed. Immediately, one of the skeletons lunged at Kettle with deadly speed. Yet Kettle merely smirked, nonchalant. A dungeon with a full-blown evil Lich inside. I think I get what is going on here. The skeleton leapt directly over him, sword poised to strike. Kettle casually swatted it away with a single motion, as if brushing off a mosquito. Witnessing this, the Lich was horrified. His hollow eye sockets widened in disbelief. The skeleton crumbled to dust from just one of Kettle's blows. Kettle dusted himself off calmly and remarked, weaker than I expected. The Lich, drenched in sweat, ground his teeth, unwilling to accept the display. He immediately summoned more skeletal warriors, a sinister smile hidden beneath his hooded skull. Let us see if you are still so cocky after losing your limbs. He thought, as long as you survive, that is all I need. A sharp, resounding clash echoed through the chamber as dozens of skeletal bodies surged toward him. Kettle sighed and clenched his fists. Ready. With another effortless swing, he destroyed one like slicing through cake. Then, he darted toward the remaining skeletons, dispatching each with precise strikes. A single kick to the skull of one forced it to drop its sword in agony. Within moments, the last skeleton fell. The Lich gaped in disbelief, unable to comprehend what he was witnessing. Watching the skeletons crumble into dust, Kettle spoke slowly, almost casually, just as I thought. Kassan was not wrong, destroy the head, and they die. He reached up and casually rubbed his hand over his head, muttering, a true Lich should summon something far stronger than these rotten skeletons. Is this all you have got? His words pierced the Lich like a dagger straight to the heart. The Lich immediately leveled his staff at him. I have had enough of this. The green soul gem atop the staff blazed with blinding light. Several of the skeletons, transformed, their decayed bones reforged with massive horned armor, rising menacingly toward him. Kettle's eyes immediately sparkled as he recognized it. That is. The skeletal warrior before him looked strangely familiar, a skeletal cavalryman. A skeletal cavalryman summoned by a Lich, he thought, excitement creeping into his expression. A mischievous, almost puppy-like grin spread across his face. Well, wait a moment, since it was created by a Lich, it might be different. Either way, this is going to be interesting. The Lich spread his bony fingers, channeling even more energy, his voice resonating with command. Kill him. In an instant, the skeletal cavalryman surged forward like a gust of wind toward Kettle. Yet Kettle showed no fear whatsoever. If anything, he felt a rush of exhilaration. A skeletal cavalryman, summoned by a lich. This was a rare opportunity. Soon enough, it reached him, raising its sword high in attack. "Let us see how tough you really are," Kettle muttered under his breath, and with a swift punch, he struck the creature square in the chest to test its durability. With another flick of his hand, the skeletal cavalryman was sent flying meters away, crashing into the cliffside with a tremendous impact. Rocks shattered into hundreds of fragments, sending dust and debris swirling into a thick, obscuring cloud. When the dust cleared, a vague shape remained still standing. The skeletal cavalryman had not been defeated and opened its jaw wide, revealing its eerie, empty maw. Kettle simply observed and commented casually, "Oh, you're tougher than the last one." The lich's eyes glowed a piercing blue as he bellowed an order, "Release all your magical energy." Immediately, the skeletal cavalryman radiated streams of blue energy, channeling the full power of the lich. It lunged at Kettle, guided by the surge of magical force. Kettle remained rooted in place, eyes wide, watching the oncoming skeletal cavalryman as it charged, mouth agape, fueled by the immense power coursing through it. Kettle watched as the skeletal cavalryman barreled toward him, a manic blur of bone and weapon, and could not help but wonder, what exactly am I dealing with here? Now, the skeletal warrior was only a few centimeters away. His hand clenched instinctively. This was a skeletal cavalryman, a creation of the lich itself. Without hesitation, he slammed down with a crushing blow to the skull. Once again, the skeletal cavalryman was sent flying meters away. Another deafening explosion rocked the cavern, chunks of stone scattering in all directions. Kettle remained silent, eyes sharp, waiting patiently for the result. The lich, on the other hand, gaped in disbelief. He had never imagined this day would come. As the dust slowly settled, the skeletal cavalryman's form was nowhere to be seen. Kettle had moved forward unnoticed and stepped heavily on the severed arm of the creature. Then, casually, he looked up at the lich and commented, almost matter-of-factly, "Quite something. But honestly, not much different from the others." "That is it." The lich, unable to maintain his arrogance, parted his bony lips and demanded, "Who are you?" His mind churned with confusion. He still could not sense any trace of arcane energy from this Mandi. If Kettle had wielded a magical artifact, the lich would have detected it, but there was nothing. His gaze shifted to Kettle's body. Could this truly be pure, unadulterated physical strength? He just destroyed a skeletal cavalryman using only his body. Is that even possible? Then the lich gasped aloud. "You are extraordinary." Suddenly, Kettle's eyes flickered sharply, focusing on something. The lich tightened his grip on the staff, dark green-black energy swirling violently around him. "Very well. I will deal with you personally." Countless streams of shadowy energy surged toward Kettle. "Consider it an honor," the lich sneered. Yet, instead of fear, Kettle's excitement was palpable. His cheeks flushed pink, his mouth forming a perfect O of pure delight. In no time, the waves of darkness engulfed him completely. The lich, convinced that Kettle had been intimidated, taunted, scared now, tremble, Mandi. Despite his confusion, Kettle simply asked, "Number. I came here because the gem was making all this noise." Hearing this, the lich broke into a cold sweat. Kettle continued, "Wasn't it you who scattered those gems in the first place?" The lich slumped in disbelief, recalling the image of Kettle. Indeed, every intruder drawn here had been lured by the gems he had scattered, and yet this Mandi had arrived with the same unwitting naivety. Then, driven by desperation, the lich raised his staff high and bellowed, "Silence, Mandi. I am the great and mighty sorcerer, the destroyer of 5 kingdoms and the challenger of heroes Kartos Branielas Kessis." Hearing the full name, Kettle's mind flickered with a memory, Queen Hessian Karusha of the elves, and he could not help but think to himself, why does everyone in this world have a name that takes up 2 lines? Dark, mottled streams of energy swirled around the lich, forming the foundation for his resurrection. "You lowly Mandi," he sneered. Soon, the dark mass surged toward Kettle, who remained perfectly still. It coalesced into an impenetrable black haze. Kettle's eyes narrowed as he carefully observed this strange phenomenon. Within his gaze, a spiral of darkness formed, a magic designed to manipulate human emotion, stirring negative feelings and trapping the victim within them. The mind becomes paralyzed, the spirit completely shattered. It was a unique spell created by Kartos, nearly unbeatable while consuming very little magical power. The Lich chuckled to himself with satisfaction. A Mandi who does not even know how to use magic, how could he resist such a supreme spell? Now, what should I do next? Kettle remained silent, his face unreadable, seemingly carrying no magical artifact at all. Frustrated, Kartos snapped his fingers. Just capture him for later study. Bring him here. A skeletal servant immediately stirred into motion, its bony legs moving step by step toward Kettle. The Mandi appeared to be floating effortlessly in midair as the minion approached, completely fearless. Suddenly, a sharp violet glint sparked in Kettle's eyes. In the next instant, he delivered a precise kick, sending Kartos's skeletal minion flying. As usual, it disintegrated into dust, returning to the void. Kettle's gaze shifted forward, unwavering. Witnessing this, Kartos's confidence shattered. Fear now gripped him as he realized the sheer abnormality of this Mandi. Another explosion rocked the cavern, stones and dust scattering everywhere. Kartos's jaw dropped, unable to believe his eyes. Impossible, he thought. The mind control spell should have worked flawlessly. Then, with a flick of his hand, Kettle extended his palm toward him. You just stand there staring, planning to order your skeletal soldiers again like before. The contempt in Kettle's expression was palpable, utter boredom and disdain. Those words cut straight to the core of Kartos's fragile ego. Humans are creatures ruled by emotion. No matter how strong they are, deep in their hearts, everyone carries some measure of negative feelings. That is why they cannot resist magic that manipulates emotion. Yet, Kettle, with an almost innocent curiosity, asked, "You do not know how to use things like fireballs or magic arrows?" Castor suddenly furrowed his brow and glared down. "I do not understand how you are still standing. How dare you compare my magic to those lowly tricks?" His eyes flashed with a dangerous light as he murmured, "What are you going to do next?" Appear, converge, streams of dark energy. Thick, inky black currents spread across the chamber, unseen waves rippling invisibly through the air. A magic array, carefully crafted by Castor, had been set in motion, capable of swallowing the world whole and plunging every mind into chaos. Kettle's eyes lit up like headlights, and a broad grin spread across his face. He was clearly thrilled by the spectacle. The streams of energy twisted together, shifting from deep blue-black to pale white, intertwining like living threads of magic. Castor extended his hand forward. Obliterate. Immediately, the power surged toward Kettle, crashing directly at him. A dense cloud of dust and debris erupted as it collided, obscuring everything from view. Castor opened his mouth and bellowed, a roar of triumph and madness. He exhaled black mist, laughing maniacally. "Victory is mine, Mandi." But soon, the effort drained him. He collapsed onto the ground, panting heavily, his entire magical reserve spent, only a trickle left to keep his body intact. Even so, with this strike, he expected Kettle to be finished. At that very moment, a familiar voice cut through the tension, interrupting Castor's grand display. He froze, utterly dumbfounded, as he saw Kettle standing upright right before him, completely unharmed. Not a scratch or bead of sweat on him. Calmly, Kettle asked, "Is that all?" Castor's mind spun. He is ridiculously resilient. Nothing, not a scratch, not a single trace of pain. He had just unleashed his most powerful dark spell. One capable of utterly crushing even a great hero's mind if struck head-on. Yet this Mandi had endured it effortlessly. What, exactly as he? Kettle, meanwhile, gazed down at his own hands, quietly muttering in admiration, "Impressive. Though I can't feel anything at all." Amid Castor's stunned silence, Kettle's voice rang out, steady and commanding. "If that was all your performance." He tightened his grip on the sharp weapon in his hand. His expression was serious, utterly devoid of playfulness. "Then it is my turn." Kertos Brandmalas Kessis muttered under his breath, "So, that is how it is." Kettle raised an eyebrow in surprise. "Huh." Kertos continued in a hoarse voice, "You came here knowing who I am." "So yes, that confirms it." At this point, Kettle still could not make sense of what was happening. What is he babbling about? No sooner had he finished speaking than Kertos erupted into a loud, boisterous laugh, his voice echoing with pride. The Empire. You fear me so much, I must admit, your intelligence network is impressive. You found me this quickly. He chuckled arrogantly, a cruel glint in his eyes. But I will return. I will crush your swords and reclaim dominion over the entire realm. With a swift, high-speed spinning kick, his long hair whipping behind him, Kertos struck faster than his opponents could react. I have heard there is a training ground deep in the Empire. A place that produces extraordinary humans. The muscular man, bound and struggling with rage, glowed with purple and blue energy as though preparing to erupt. This training ground had produced countless prodigies. And this man D was certainly one of them, a sword forged to kill him, an assassin sent by the Empire. The skull-headed figure in the cloak screamed, mouth agape, filled with anger and terror. Even as Kertos proclaimed his ambition directly to Kettle, I am Kertos Brandmalas Kessis. I will kill you and overthrow the Empire. Kettle, observing Kertos' strange behavior, could not hide his confusion. Is this guy insane? Suddenly, Kertos summoned an ancient urn from midair. The sight left Kettle momentarily stunned. Then Kertos shouted, a chilling command, give me your body. In an instant, sparkling liquid shot from the urn straight toward Kettle's body. Immediately, Kettle's entire body went completely paralyzed. Kertos poured himself into the Mandi's body, consuming not just the flesh but the very soul. Once he did so, if he did not become a lich again, he would be trapped in this body forever. Kertos told himself grimly, I have no other choice. Then he laughed loudly, exulting. This body is mine now. Finally. Inside Kettle's consciousness, he remained bewildered, unable to comprehend what would happen next. The moment Kertos infiltrated his mind, he froze in shock. What is this, the inner world of this man D? I have never seen anything like it. Something's wrong. The more he probed, the more chaotic it became. Simply perceiving this inner world caused his mind to unravel, teetering on the brink of collapse. His voice began to tremble. No, do not tell me this is the Empire. Kertos clutched his head, screaming violently, no, no, this is not the Empire. Even the Empire could not have created something like this. He shouted in sheer terror, his mind teetering on the edge of collapse. The final words of Lich Kartos. Huh. Watching the scene unfold, Kettle's face reflected pure confusion. What the hell just happened? He did something to himself and suddenly collapsed. Kertos now lay motionless on the ground. Kettle quietly thought to himself, that swirling black vortex looks cool, but that is all there is to it. He tightened his fists, thinking further, so, liches in this world are not anything extraordinary after all. I have already cleared out the dungeon. Now it is time to claim my reward. Bending down, Kettle picked up the wand lying discarded on the floor. It glowed faintly, likely infused with a spell. He examined it carefully. So this helps cast magic. If I have this, could I also wield magic? As he spoke, he accidentally dropped the magical stone from the wand. Quickly, he pocketed it, relieved. Better keep this hidden, it is mine. Glancing around the dungeon, he noticed the ancient urn. He murmured to himself, since this belonged to a lich, could it be a vessel for souls? He picked up the urn, thinking he should ask Rosa to appraise it. Still vigilant, Kettle scanned the area. Alright, I think I have harvested enough rewards. Though something feels off. His eyes fell forward, landing on a mysterious seal floating midair. Huh, could there be a hidden room here? He reached out and touched the floating seal. The moment he did, thick black smoke billowed up suddenly. The seal shattered into pieces, and from the swirling mist, shadowy figures began to emerge. Their vacant faces gradually became more distinct through the haze. One by one, they formed a circle around Kettle. He had just stumbled into the secret ritual chamber of Lich Kartos. Kettle's eyes widened in genuine surprise. So it really exists. But he slowly stepped forward toward the strange figures. Who are these people? Waving his hand at the unmoving man in front of him, he said, hello. Seeing no reaction, he tried again, directing his voice toward the others, is anyone here? He then leaned on his chin, muttering to himself, what should I do now? Finally, he lowered his voice and decided, all right, better head back to the territory for now. As he left, he kept thinking, once I report this, they will probably send someone to handle it. Back at his territory, Kettle immediately sought out Rosa. He quickly appeared in the reception area where she worked. Seeing him, Rosa's face lit up with joy. "Ah, Lord Kettle, you are back a bit early today, are not you?" Kettle replied cheerfully, "Just had a few things to take care of." Without missing a beat, Rosa asked, "Oh, what kind of things?" He responded calmly, "Well, it is about the orb I showed you yesterday." Rosa hesitated, feeling a little uneasy. "Oh, come on, you are joking, right?" Kettle's tone turned firm. "I am not joking." Hearing that, Rosa silently marveled. A lich. There are only 5 in the entire world, and it appeared in such a remote place. Then, without warning, Kettle placed the ancient urn in front of her, making her startle. He continued in an extremely serious tone, "I brought back this urn. It looks like a lich's soul vessel. Can you examine it for me?" Rosa's face showed clear astonishment. She looked at him, eyes wide, and said in disbelief, "You are not joking, are you?" Rosa's face betrayed her shock, unable to hide her horror. What on earth is happening? Meanwhile, Kettle remained calm, warning her, and there are a few more inside as well." He continued explaining about the people trapped in the urn. "I was going to release them, but their minds are completely gone. I left them be. It is best to let the guild send someone to inspect." Before Kettle could finish, Rosa interrupted politely, "Excuse me." She paused, thinking to herself, her voice tinged with apprehension. "Come to think of it, there have been a few disappearances in the territory lately. But no reports of finding anyone. Could this be the work of a lich?" Suddenly, she shouted, "Wait, I will call for help immediately." Shortly after, a guard burst into the room, shouting, "What happened? A lich? Did you say a lich?" Seeing him, Kettle casually waved, making the guard freeze mid-step. "Oh, hey there." Then Kettle addressed him calmly, "Everything's already taken care of. There is nothing to worry about. It is not a big deal." The guard blinked, confused. "Wait, what do you mean?" After hearing Kettle recount the events, the guard shouted in disbelief, "Kartos Brandmalas Kessis." Kettle replied nonchalantly, "Yeah, I think that is him." Curious, he asked, "You know him?" "Of course," Kettle said. Kartos Brandmalas Kessis, the wizard who had toppled kingdoms over a century ago, the creator of the emotion-manipulating magic that spread endless chaos. He drove kings mad and destroyed 5 kingdoms, and now he appears here as a lich. The guard, still skeptical, asked, "Is this really true?" Kettle responded matter-of-factly, "Yes. But he was not impressive at all, just causing mischief. And then, he destroyed himself." The guard frowned, puzzled. "You are saying what exactly?" He thought silently, "Impossible. A wizard like Kartos just destroyed himself." Then he asked Kettle, "I would like a clearer explanation." Kettle replied casually, "Even if I explained, there is nothing more to tell." The guard sighed, feeling somewhat helpless. He then turned to leave, instructing the two, "Wait here for a bit, I will report this to the Lord." Upon hearing the news, Lord Luke Barkan exclaimed in shock, "What the hell is this? A lich right near our territory." He turned to the guard, suspicious. "Are you certain it is a lich? Could it be some other monster?" The guard answered respectfully, "Honestly, based on the accounts of those rescued, it seems accurate, sir. We even have solid evidence." After hearing the full story, Lord Luke said to the guard, "You mean a soul vessel?" He silently pondered, worry etched in his voice. A lich of that caliber hiding so close to our territory without anyone noticing. The Empire could send investigators at any moment, and Kane is absent right now. He lowered his head slightly, frowning in frustration. What a nuisance. Finally, Lord Luke gave the guard his orders, prepared to send a letter to the capital. The guard respectfully acknowledged, "Yes, sir." Luke added thoughtfully, "Still, perhaps we are fortunate." The guard responded, "Yes, sir. If that man did not find it, we might have been the first victims." Lord Luke continued, "Kartos is likely in the process of preparing to resurrect as a lich, so it is very possible." The guard quickly added, "Things are no longer normal, sir." Hearing that, Lord Luke immediately nodded in agreement. "Most likely, yes." He then spoke decisively, "Even so, this is still a commendable achievement. We must award properly." Looking out the window, he murmured softly, "As long as it is within the territory's means." The next morning, sunlight poured brightly through the windows of the manor. A servant's voice suddenly echoed through the mansion, "My lord, my lord." Hearing this, Lord Luke immediately rose from bed and walked toward the source of the call. He calmly draped his robe over his shoulders and told the servant, "I am awake, let them in." No sooner had he spoken than the large door was opened. The servant hurriedly delivered the news, "My lord, the sun god's inquisitor, Lord Aquas, has arrived at the territory." Lord Luke's expression turned to surprise. "What?" In the waiting room, the inquisitor idly gazed out the window, observing the morning scenery. Seeing her in person at his territory, Lord Luke was taken aback. How? Why is she here? She was a young woman with white hair, impeccably dressed, standing with perfect posture, the sun god's inquisitor. In the manor's audience room, the two sat across from each other in silence for a long moment. Finally, Lord Luke spoke first, offering a respectful greeting. "It is truly an honor to meet you. I am Luke Varkon, Lord of the Varkon territory. I thank you for visiting, even if rather suddenly." The inquisitor, seated opposite, introduced herself politely. "I am Aquas, the sun god's inquisitor, one who judges heretics in his name." Aquas, inquisitor of the sun god. She was the youngest ever appointed, the one who had executed 7 mages who had made pacts with demons, and single-handedly disrupted a massive summoning ritual. Currently, she was the most powerful inquisitor of the sun god on the continent. Even the empire had to respect the sun god's church. Her authority far surpassed that of a provincial lord. Lord Luke wondered silently, why would someone like her? The inquisitor spoke calmly, "There has been considerable unrest in this territory recently." The lord hesitated, then replied, "There was a minor issue in the nearby dungeon, but it has been resolved." So, it was not the lich. He then cautiously asked her, "May I inquire the reason for this visit?" Aquas replied in a measured tone, "I have come to discuss a divine decree with you." Noticing the faint unease on Lord Luke's face, Aquas continued, her tone measured yet firm. She pressed further, "Before we discuss the matter at hand, I want to hear clearly what has transpired here in your territory recently." Lord Luke hesitated, his gaze dropping slightly, reluctant to meet her eyes. "Well, this matter." After recounting the full sequence of events, Aquas's expression sharpened with interest. "The man-D? You mean the one who destroyed the lich?" Lord Luke nodded cautiously. "Yes, and it may very well be Kartos Braniola's Kessis." Aquas's eyes widened in astonishment. "What, that one?" Here, she needed confirmation. Without another word, Lord Luke placed the ancient vial carefully on the tea table. "Here, this is the sole relic of Kartos." The moment Aquas saw the vial, her face paled. She faltered, whispering, "This is." She instinctively clutched the sun emblem pendant at her chest, her mind racing. What on earth has happened? The atmosphere in the room grew heavy, shadowed by an ominous tension. Aquas leaned slightly closer, her voice low and cautious as she addressed Lord Luke, "That man-D, he is still here, somewhere within this territory." Luke Barkhan replied with a serious expression, "He is still within the territory." The noblewoman seated across from him spoke cautiously, her voice measured, "That man-D defeated Kartos. Is that truly possible?" Luke Barkhan nodded with certainty. The woman's eyes widened in shock. "It is true. Even Lord Cain was defeated by him." Each of her questions carried a follow-up, probing for more clues. "A new power has emerged. This man-D, which tribe does he belong to?" Luke Barkhan tensed as he answered, "He claims to be from the Snow Ice Plains." A mental image of Kettle, muscular and imposing, formed in her mind. She frowned, puzzled. "The Snow Ice Plains? You mean he is a man-D from that desolate region? How could a being from the Mavuch appear outside?" Her eyes flickered with contemplation, and she hesitated before speaking. "Could it be?" The woman's voice carried a tone of suspicion. "Perhaps. He is the very reason I was sent here." Luke Barkhan leaned forward, trying to catch her meaning. "What do you mean?" She hesitated for a moment, then her eyes hardened with determination. "That man-D. May I meet him in person?" Meanwhile, small details of Kettle's surroundings came into focus. Candles were suspended by chains from the ceiling above a circle, ceramic vases and cups rested on a table below. and a large blue gem balanced delicately between 3 of his fingers. He pondered, how exactly am I supposed to use this? Lying on his bed, Kettle held the gem in front of him, imagining it resting within a crescent-shaped tray. He thought to himself, it looks like some sort of magical device to aid spellcasting. Well, I will ask a mage later. Suddenly, his eyes caught on something. Sitting upright, he turned to the window, reminding himself, seems like the time has come. The captain arrived shortly after, announcing, the sun god's inquisitor has requested to meet you. The meeting will take place at the cathedral. He glanced at Kettle's serious expression and cautioned, when meeting her, please show proper respect. Kettle replied cheerfully, don't worry about it. The captain's gaze fell on the gloves Kettle wore on his wrists. He spoke quietly, a hint of tension in his voice, you are here. Kettle, wearing his sheepskin coat, folded his arms and faced him calmly. The captain continued, shall we go, then? The woman with long hair stood shrouded in darkness, her entire figure clad in black, exuding an aura of mystery. In her outstretched hand, she held an object radiating a purple light. In this world, gods truly existed. They could bestow power directly, even descend to the mortal realm, and gather those who served them faithfully. The interior of the cathedral was solemn and imposing. Kettle, still dazed, followed the captain, who whispered quietly, we are here. Kettle's gaze swept over the front of the building, noting the sun-shaped emblem carved into its facade. He stared in awe at the towering structure before him, his eyes sparkling and mouth agape. The Cathedral of the Sun God, he thought. The captain led him to the large doors and instructed, once inside, someone will guide you. Kettle replied cheerfully, I appreciate it. One of his feet was half on the stone threshold and half on the ground outside. As he stepped forward, his curiosity was evident, and he murmured in wonder. A statue of the goddess stood solemnly, with a glowing circle suspended behind it. Sunlight streamed sharply through the window's crack. 3 hooded figures stepped forward with solemn bows. Welcome, Lord Kettle, they intoned. The woman approached and spoke, Inquisitor Aquas is waiting for you. She then turned to him, please, follow me. Kettle, a bit tense, replied, very well. Inquisitor Aquas greeted him with a polite nod. It is an honor to meet you. She sat on a wooden chair intricately carved with floral motifs, surrounded by branches and blossoms, and introduced herself, I am Aquas, Inquisitor of the Sun God. Kettle seated himself, folding his arms, and returned the greeting warmly, the pleasure is mine. I am the man D. Kettle. He thought to himself. So this is the Inquisitor. She is very young. He smiled quietly, impressed by her apparent strength. Across from him, Aquas shifted slightly, her expression tinged with unease. She wondered silently why he was smiling. Kettle asked curiously, so, why did you want to see me? Aquas responded softly, hesitating for a moment, About that. She lowered her gaze slightly. A man in a black cloak stood next to her, raising his hand to summon a bolt of crackling blue electricity. His face remained obscured in shadow, but his eyes gleamed with menace. Aquas, in contrast, remained calm, her eyes downcast with a hint of sorrow. She began to explain the recent dungeon incident. Kartos, the one you claimed was defeated. He once committed atrocities across the world. Midday sunlight slanted through the windows, casting long patterns on the floor and wooden table. Kettle studied her intently, the space between them silent as she continued. He transformed into a lich, and only heroes are capable of confronting him. Meanwhile, a skeleton draped in a purple cloak stood in a swirl of black and violet energy. Cold light reflected off its skull mask, giving it the appearance of a mocking grin. Kettle replied calmly, I have heard of him, but Kartos. I saw him merely as a lich floundering alone, left to live and die by himself. Leaning back in his chair, Kettle squinted slightly, his expression serious yet composed, speaking with a hint of resignation. It seems you do not fully believe me, but I can only recount what I witnessed. Sunlight streamed into the room, illuminating the long wooden table that separated them. The white-haired girl leaned slightly forward, one hand raised as if explaining something. Then, will you allow my god to directly witness this conversation? She asked. Kettle, folding his arms, replied, witness. The Inquisitor tilted her head, her gaze calm but edged with solemnity. Yes, If you lie in the presence of the deity, there will be a reaction. Kettle's brow furrowed with curiosity. A form of divine interrogation. Her eyes glimmered red with seriousness, though there was a trace of hesitation. A bead of sweat rolled down her cheek as she tried to maintain a composed expression while explaining. Even if he is not an ordinary Mandi, he is still a Mandi. There is no way he would agree to this. Of course, if you feel uncomfortable, you may refuse. She wondered silently, why would I refuse? Kettle's smile widened, brimming with excitement. This is a perfect chance to experience divine power firsthand. Are you certain? Of course, she replied, and he immediately leaned forward, eager to begin. The Inquisitor was taken aback by his enthusiasm. What, he actually seems excited. She asked cautiously, does this not make you uneasy? Kettle's eyes sparkled with thrill. Why should it? There is a god observing me. I have nothing to hide. He added with a hint of pride, I have never told a single lie. The Inquisitor softly acknowledged him, I understand. Then let us begin. Clasping her hands together, she began reciting a supplication. Oh my God, you who observe from the highest realms. A circular symbol with 4 wings blazed to life, radiating intense light. Multicolored streaks shimmered around it as she continued, O you who govern the sun itself. Please through your gaze expose all deceit in this place. 2 sharp beams of light shot toward each other, colliding with a thunderous roar. Light poured from the sky onto the castle roof, accompanied by a deafening chorus of magical resonance. Kettle's senses tingled from the sheer force of it. What is this? I can feel it. A golden circle spread its brilliance, a presence far beyond mere light. The Inquisitor transformed into a towering divine figure, her back adorned with a ring of white patterns majestic and incomprehensible to human understanding. Kettle stared in awe, his emotions whirling, glancing upward as the beams of light carved intricate patterns into the air. For a long moment, they sat facing each other. She continued her supplication while Kettle lowered his head, sensing the overwhelming presence. Finally, the Inquisitor opened her eyes and silently gave thanks. Thank the heavens. No reaction. Placing a hand over her chest, she said, then let us begin. Kettle's gaze sharpened, aware that from this moment onward, no falsehood would be allowed within this radiant pillar. He smiled faintly, replying, understood. The conversation began under the watchful gaze of the sun god. Kettle recounted his dungeon conquest in detail, just as he had described before, and there was no negative reaction at all. Every word he spoke was clearly truthful. Perhaps Kartos had been severely weakened during his resurrection preparations. If he still had the ability to wield magic, this Mandi would not even be here. That fleeting thought crossed his mind, and he acknowledged silently that he had indeed been lucky. Suddenly, his wandering thoughts were interrupted by a question. Have you resolved all your doubts? The words jolted Aqua's, and she instinctively widened her eyes for a moment. After a brief pause, she regained her composure and respectfully lowered herself, responding, yes. Thank you, and forgive my earlier impropriety. The man opposite her remained courteous, replying, it is nothing. I found this exhilarating. Aquas slowly lifted her gaze and asked, then, may I ask you a personal question? Of course, Kettle replied casually, though she still seemed a bit anxious, her lips trembling as if the words were struggling to form. After a long pause, she finally spoke a question that made Kettle raise his eyebrows in surprise. You truly come from the snow-ice wastelands? Kettle answered succinctly, yes. Those 2 simple words only heightened Aqua's curiosity. You really come from there, she thought silently, her mind racing, the demon realm. Could he be the Grey Mandi of imperial legend? Kettle did not respond directly to her speculation but instead posed another question, catching her slightly off guard. Then let me ask you something. He folded his arms seriously, pressing the question. Why have you come to this land? A seemingly simple question, yet it left her momentarily speechless. Aquas lowered her gaze, trying to explain, I have personal matters to attend to here. But Kettle was relentless, pressing further, these personal matters. Are they to confirm whether I am impure? She hesitated, slightly uneasy, and deflected, I do not understand what you mean. In his mind, the image of himself standing under the sunlight flickered, and he murmured under his breath, divine eye. He propped his chin on his hand and voiced his thoughts aloud. I am not certain, but for a god to personally observe, This is not ordinary. This is not just about detecting lies, it is far beyond that. Aquas did not know how to respond. She closed her eyes briefly, thinking, I want to explain it is not like that. But under the divine eye, all falsehoods are forbidden. She did not voice those thoughts but spoke softly instead. You are correct. Kettle's curiosity deepened. Who? So from the very beginning, you have been targeting me. Startled, Aquas immediately interjected, it is not like that. There was a prophecy. She recounted everything slowly, piece by piece. When I arrived here, I thought you might be the one mentioned in the prophecy, but the outcome. As you can see. Finally, Aquas placed her hand over her chest again, speaking deliberately, I apologize for hiding my true intentions. Kettle rested his hand on the table with an indifferent gesture, suggesting, it is fine. I found it interesting in my own way. Now then, let me ask one more thing. He fixed his wide eyes on her, pressing, what did the prophecy say? Aquas hesitated, thinking carefully. Normally, she would not reveal it to someone she did not fully trust. But after a brief moment, she spoke. The prophecy states. Her face was serious as she looked straight at him, her words flowing continuously as she described events certain to occur in the future. Each sentence from Aquas felt like a vice, widening Kettle's eyes and opening his mouth further and further. After a while, the room settled into calm once more, leaving only Aquas standing under the slanting sunlight filtering through the window. A few heavy footsteps echoed from outside, breaking the stillness. She glanced back, quietly observing what was happening. She turned toward Luke Barkan, surprised, and called out, my lord. He looked at her once, his tone gentle with concern. You seem troubled. Aquas lowered her gaze, speaking softly, yes. I have met him, but that only left my thoughts more tangled. Luke Barkan's curiosity sharpened. Who exactly is he? She looked out the window, thoughtful, and said with certainty, he is definitely a Mandi from the snow-ice wastelands. Her words opened a new revelation for Luke Barkan. Really? Yes, Aquas admitted honestly. We have no information from inside the snow-ice wastelands, but this has been confirmed as truth. There were a few details she still kept to herself, silently hoping the rumors were false, but in the end, the truth was undeniable. Luke Barkan considered the matter seriously. If this spreads, the entire world will be shaken. Aquas, though calm in speech, thought privately, many people desire to explore the snow-ice wastelands, especially the Emperor. A few grisly visions flashed through her mind if the Emperor acted. Personally, imagine the chaos that would ensue. Yet aloud, she reassured Luke Barkan with calm certainty. You need not worry. We will handle Kartos ourselves, and the existence of this Mandi will remain hidden from the public. Luke Barkan exhaled, relieved. Truly fortunate. Still, curiosity lingered. Are all the Mandi from the snow-ice wastelands like him? He recalled 3 faint images in his mind and reasoned, certainly not. If all of them were like him, they would have left the snow-ice wastelands long ago and conquered the world. Aquas reflected silently. Indeed, even if it is not him, there are many Mandi in this world. They are strong, but simultaneously foolish. That is the natural limit of the Mandi. She continued to ponder. But what if a being with such physical advantages also possessed true intelligence? Luke Barkan spoke again, interrupting her thoughts. Now that I think of it, I have heard that this Mandi prince is different. I hear he possesses not just power, but intelligence as well. She lowered her gaze, calmly assessing. The king of all Mandi. You mean him, right? I have only met him once, but indeed, he is completely different from ordinary Mandi. He replied softly, a hint of concern in his voice. Is that so? If the two of them met, it would surely be interesting. Almost immediately, Aquas dismissed the idea. I do not think so. Her denial once again left Luke Barkan puzzled, his eyes wide with surprise. He studied the girl in front of him carefully. The relationship between the Mandi and those who serve the gods has never been smooth. For them to grow increasingly powerful is not something he could simply laugh off. After a moment, Luke Barkan finally asked, by the way, what exactly did the prophecy say that required a private meeting? Aquas remained calm. I needed to confirm one thing. Her ambiguous phrasing only added to his unease. Confirm what? She fixed her gaze outside, her expression serious. To determine whether he is truly human. Or merely something disguised as one? Luke Barkhan frowned in confusion. Good heavens, what exactly did the prophecy say? Aquas straightened, speaking slowly as if weighing the gravity of her words. The prophecy states. And then the words of the prophecy were revealed to another, yet not to a reader, but directly to him. Luke Barkhan's reaction mirrored Kettle's astonishment and disbelief. How could that be possible? The scene quickly shifted to the tea table, his expression tinged with worry. Are you well? Kettle looked slightly surprised but answered politely. Thanks to you, I am living quite well here in the territory. But, why have you summoned me again? Luke Barkhan's voice was calm and measured. As the lord of this territory, there is something I wish to discuss with you. Kettle seemed to understand immediately, interrupting casually. I am not particularly concerned. Yet Luke continued, not an apology. But I have prepared a reward for your efforts in saving this territory. He tapped lightly on the table, the rhythmic sound reflecting the composed, gentlemanly manner of a lord at ease. The words and the reward caused Kettle's eyes to widen in disbelief. A servant brought forth a bag, introducing it formally. We present the reward granted by the Lord Beast Leather. Kettle looked at the bag on the table, puzzled. A bag made of leather. Luke Barkhan, noticing his curiosity, added with a knowing tone, it is no ordinary leather bag. Inspect it yourself. Kettle stared intently at the small bag resting in his hands. Don't tell me this is. Another voice rang out, piquing his curiosity. Inspect it yourself. Immediately, Kettle's eyes widened in astonishment. This was a magical artifact in the form of a bag. Luke Barkhan spoke, continuing to explain, you can store as many items as you like, as long as there is space inside the bag. The interior is roughly the size of a room. Kettle was still in shock as he looked into the vast space contained. Within, a magical artifact, an object created by magic. This is the first time I have ever seen one in real life. Just then, Barkhan added, even if an item is larger than the opening of the bag, you can still fit it inside. Kettle responded lightly, still amazed. He reached for his weapon. In that case, let us try putting something in. He slowly brought it toward the bag's opening, though it seemed too large on the outside. In the next instant, the axe was sucked inside as if drawn by some invisible force. Whoa, if you want to take something out, just reach in and imagine the item, Barkhan explained. Kettle's eyes sparkled as he held the weapon high. Whoa, this is incredible. Barkhan smiled and said, this is a gift in return for saving the territory. I hope you will like it. Kettle responded with excitement, like it. I love it already, I will make sure to use it properly and with care. Barkhan silently thought, seeing him happy makes me happy too. But in the next moment, his mind wandered elsewhere. Alright, I suppose that matter can rest for now. The prophecy, though, what exactly is happening in that distant land? His thoughts briefly returned to his conversation with Cain. The demonic creatures from the demon realm are spreading into the world. Something is definitely happening globally. He lowered his gaze, speculating, perhaps it is connected to this prophecy. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a young woman with long white hair stood by a window. The prophecy spoke of a great demon descending. A mighty demon that would appear and spread across the world. The Varkhan territory served as a network connecting countless villages, which kept in regular contact. In the streets, merchants called out to passers-by. In a shadowy corner, a stall suddenly closed, and one day, communication with one of the villages was abruptly cut off. Initially, no one thought much of it. A middle-aged man and a young man carried supplies to investigate, but days passed with no word. One of the neighboring villages sent people to check, and they never returned. A group of soldiers stood in formation outside another location. When the Lord heard the news, he sent guards, but they too never came back. Luke Barkhan's face went pale, darkening with concern. Only then did the Lord realize something serious was happening. Someone suddenly asked, do we have any requests today? Rosa quickly responded, yes, there is an urgent assignment. Kettle's interest peaked. Oh, what is it about? She replied, we need to confirm the situation in a village that has lost contact. Rosa sat up straighter, speaking seriously. A few days ago, one of the villages stopped responding. Your task is simply to check on them. It is a straightforward mission, but the reward is generous. Kettle rested his hand under his chin and smiled. I like missions like that. I will take it. Rosa let out a quiet sigh of relief, thinking, just as I expected. Not long after, they arrived at the gathering point where various mercenaries had assembled. Priest Hayes stood in a corner, slightly bowing and clasping her hands. Unnoticed by her, footsteps slowly approached. Then a familiar voice sounded in her ear. Hayes. Hayes instinctively looked up at the speaker, eyes widening in surprise. Ah, Kettle. Kettle smiled widely across from her. He was dressed differently now, no longer in his typical Mandi attire, but in his own clothes. He casually raised a hand. Ah, I just got a new outfit. The old one I was wearing had worn out. Hayes examined it and commented, the design looks quite unique. Kettle beamed with pride. I designed it myself. Her eyes widened. Impressive. Suddenly, Hayes remembered something. Ah, by the way. Are you taking this mission too, Kettle? Kettle's face lit up with pride. Yes, I could not possibly pass up such an interesting task. Hayes could not help but think, as I suspected, he really is special. She hesitated, then asked, but why are you going alone? Aren't your teammates coming with you? Kettle thought of his two companions. Alexandro and Kasab are not joining.